They're known as the learned friends, thanks to the tedious nature of work that they do all in pursuit for justice. Welcome to the Groundbreakers podcast series powered by Take 6 Africa Digital. I am your host, Nancy Nalima, and today on the program, we talk legal matters. What does it take to start a law practice, a law firm, and is it profitable? Right here with me is Adair Stephen, an advocate for the High Court of Kenya practicing litigation and transactional law. Welcome.
Thank you, Neil.
That's a big title. Honestly, advocate. An advocate is not just a lawyer.
Yes, there's a difference.
Tell us.
I mean, essentially, a lawyer is anyone who has a law degree. An advocate is someone who's been admitted to the bar, which means you've gone to the Kenya School of Law, done your postgraduate diploma, and passed all your exams, and qualified to be admitted to the bar. And you've been admitted to the bar by the Chief Justice. And from then onwards, you're an advocate of the High Court of Kenya.
Wow. So that's why it's very decorated.
It is, because it's a lengthy process.
Right.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of studies, and I think every advocate deserves what that title deserves.
Has this always been the dream?
Since it became the dream, it has always been the dream. It was not always the dream initially.
Right.
I think from growing up as a child, I'd always thought I'd be a medical doctor. From primary school to a large part in my high school, I always thought I was going to be a medical doctor. Up until when I finished high school, when I had that discussion with my parents, and we had a lot of career talk at that point in time. And because there was a lot of discussions surrounding the ICC prosecutions relating to the 2007 post-election violence. And because of that discussion occurring around me, it really influenced my choices, and I had to change my career preferences just before I joined campus and then I joined law school.
So you went to law school, then to KSL, the Kenya School of Law.
Yes,
You passed the bar.
correct.
Then you're out here.
Mm-hmm.
So then, right now, you practice transactional and litigation law.
Yes.
How did we get here?
When I finished law school, I was lucky to join some of the most prestigious law firms in the country. And I think I had a very good foundation being young in the profession. I think I went through very good trainings being young in the profession. But knowing who I am, I wanted to get some sense of fulfillment, which perhaps I couldn't get remaining in employment. I wanted to get the feeling of starting something, seeing it grow, and seeing it, get some sense of traction. And I think that brought me a bigger fulfillment to see our own clientele grow, to see us address our clients' issues and help shape their business objectives in one way or the other.
Right.
So all along, while I appreciate the places I've worked at, I appreciate the experience I gained and the exposure it gave me, I think the goal has always been to be in a more fulfilling environment where I can shape the vision and the direction in general.
Right. And right now, when we hear you're already practicing,
Yes,
we have to go back to how it all began. Taking that first step,
correct.
which is usually the hardest.
Yes,
Because
yes.
in our minds, we make big plans, but now to execute it, that first step.
Yeah.
What was it like?
That first step is perhaps the hardest. And I've always felt the earlier you take that first step, the better, because it's not easy to leave employment to get into completely uncharted territories, completely unknown areas.
Sounds like that.
You're leaving a place where you've never had to worry about bills, you've never had to worry about salaries to be paid, you've never had to worry about your next client, into a place where all these become part of your worry. It's completely uncertain, it's completely unsafe, it can go completely
Either
wrong.
way.
It can go completely wrong. I always say the earlier you do it, the better, because you could start all over again if you do it early. You could decide it's not working and seek employment again.
So what does it take to start a law firm? You know that you are a lawyer, you have passed the bar, you're an advocate
Yes.
of the High Court of Kenya. So then when you start the business,
Yeah.
what does it take? What qualifications does one require?
There are three kind of law firms. The people who are sole proprietors. So you could just practice in your own name. That's still a law firm,
Right.
legally speaking. There are people who formed what we call limited liability partnerships, LLPs. So you'd partner with a colleague who's a lawyer. By law, you can only partner with a fellow advocate. Essentially, what being in a partnership means is if you're a partner in a partnership, you're entitled to a share of profits. And legally speaking, advocates are not allowed under the Advocates Act to share profits with unqualified persons. So unqualified persons means any person who's not a lawyer.
Right.
So if you were to form a partnership as a law firm, you can only partner with another advocate.
So where does a dear Stephen then fall in?
Myself, I'm an advocate. Adair and co-advocates is a limited liability partnership. I have two partners we form the partnership with. Okay. So that's the vehicle we chose when we were setting up our firm.
You do transactional and litigation.
Yes.
Law.
Yes.
Why that specific area? We know it's wide.
In legal practice, I think broadly speaking, those are the two categories.
Mm-hmm.
You could be doing transactional work, or you could be doing contentious work, which is essentially litigious work. So transactional work it could range from areas such as banking, finance.
Right.
It could go to corporate commercial, which essentially relates to company law. It could go to data protection, intellectual property. All this is transactional
So
of
it-
sorts.
So it's wide, it encompasses so many
It
things.
encompasses so many things. While contagious work could go from litigation in court, it could go from arbitration, it could go to mediation, it could go to appearing before various tribunals. It could even take the form of internal tribunals within various organizations for specific purposes.
What are some of the highlights that you have learned
Mhm.
now being in this service industry?
Mhm. It's an industry where reputation is everything. And I think that's why, for instance, those first few clients we had was such a big challenge, because these are your first clients, and your first clients are going to tell the next ones what they think about you. For any service industry, I always thought it was just about lawyers. But for any service industry, I think reputation is everything.
Word of mouth. Someone will say,
completely,
you got their services.
completely. It's worse than not being paid for services you've rendered.
Well, we didn't mention this earlier, but the whole paperwork registration, I know a lot of critics have said it's a tedious process when you're
It
trying
is.
to get your business out there. What was the experience for you and your partners?
It is. It's true. I mean, visibility is one of the hardest things to achieve, especially within the legal service business. One of the reasons why it is actually hard to achieve compared to other businesses, because by law, lawyers are not allowed to advertise. Setting up legal business is not as hard. In fact, keeping the business running
That's the task.
is the task.
There are different personalities
Correct.
that you meet, even with your clients.
Correct.
How do you then manage to, keep it together?
Yeah.
Because there's those moments. And now, in terms of your communication skills.
Correct. I think it goes back to your training as a lawyer, especially in the legal industry.
Right.
What you're essentially doing most of the time is solving problems. So essentially, people are approaching you at their moment of distress. So you're mostly meeting people at their worst emotionally.
So then you know when to employ empathy,
Exactly.
when to be very firm.
If you look at it from a litigation perspective, the role of your lawyer most of the time is to be able to tell your story. So if you can be able to bring out the emotions of the story, okay, in a way that makes it aligned with the law and the facts, if you can be able to emphasize the parts of this story that needs emphasis, then you're going to be a better lawyer than the other side of the law. So essentially, the lawyer who's able to tell the story better might be the one that wins. Okay. Yeah.
By law, everybody requires representation.
Correct.
But critics will argue and say that someone is a thief, well-known thief. Someone is well-known person who causes a lot of violence.
Yeah, yeah,
But then there are lawyers
yeah,
going to represent these people.
yeah.
How do you navigate that?
Here's how you should look at it, because I've had this question a couple of times. I've represented people accused of murder, for instance.
Right.
I've represented people accused of, anti-corruption related crimes. And you get that question a lot of time from someone who was not there, someone who's not aware of the fact. They'll tell you they did it. Why would you represent someone like that? But I think it's for lack of understanding of the aim of legal representation.
Right.
Because the aim of legal representation is to ensure everyone's right within the process is respected. It is to ensure that even that person who is eventually convicted for that crime gets justice. And getting justice includes making sure they're treated right, making sure they actually understand why they're being accused of what they're being accused of, making sure that even as they're being found guilty for it and as they're being punished for it, it is done right and as per the law. So if it's punishment by imprisonment, it includes making sure they're not going to prison for more than they should
Right.
for whatever they did.
If you were to make a video today about things I wish I knew before I came an advocate, what are the things that you would say?
Things I wish I knew before I became an advocate.
Yeah, because there's so many other young people who are
Yeah.
looking to get into the law practice. They're waiting for a dear Stephen to give them some 2 cents.
I'd say number one, I'd focus on the business aspect of the trade just as much as I focus on the intellectual aspect of it. I say that because I think majority of us advocates, we really focus on the intellectual aspect of it. We want to gain as much knowledge as possible. We want to be as learned as possible. We want to be the most intelligent advocate in the room. But it only occurs to us way later that sometimes the business of it requires more than just being the most intelligent advocate.
Right.
It requires being able to network, for instance. It requires being able to land a client, for instance. It requires being able to bring business. There's a part of that is not discovered until late. No one really teaches advocates business. Okay.
Until you get on the ground.
Until you get on the ground. And when you get on the ground, you realize just how fast and how limited time you have to learn these things. And then you have to, So you'd see most advocates, they go back to do MBAs, and they do all these business related short courses because it's that realization of how important these other skills are in the market.
So then you say that the journey to owning a law firm
Mm-hmm.
doesn't just begin it. There's all this that goes in before, like
Yeah,
getting a mentor.
it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, I know colleagues who from the onset set up their own law firms.
Right.
And I'm really glad they did because I think they also picked up lessons that maybe I didn't pick up because I was still focused on, building a foundation,
Right.
learning from the people I could learn from. But generally speaking, I think getting some sort of learning experience, getting some sort of exposure from someone else who's been around longer, from an organization that has a wider outreach, it gives you an exposure that you might not get if you start off from yourself at the
So
onset.
there's only something about people with experience.
Exactly.
You've got a lot to teach us.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. I think so. I agree. 100%.
And in this whole journey, the question that we like to ask most,
Mm-hmm.
profitability. It's a business.
Yeah.
At the end of the day,
Mm-hmm.
bills need to get paid
Yeah.
to advance ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about it. How then did you decide this is how I'm going to be pricing my services,
Mm-hmm.
and how has it been in the long run?
I think legal practice is one of the most profitable businesses in the country, and I think in the world generally. I think lawyers are really well paid people.
Mhm.
Sometimes something like pricing in the legal industry is very regulated.
Okay.
There is what we call advocates remuneration order, which is a law that regulates pricing for advocates. What it essentially does is it sets a threshold, a minimum threshold. So it tells you
Reducible minimum.
exactly, it tells you what you cannot charge below, okay, what you cannot go below when you're charging, but it doesn't give you a maximum threshold.
For people who are looking to get into the trade as
That's right.
that first step.
I'd say take it. Take it. Take that first step. Take it. Don't even think twice about it. I mean, when I say don't even think twice about it, I don't mean you be reckless about it.
There's a difference.
There's a big difference. Look at the people who it's just the fear holding them back. But there are people who also made a very calculated uh, thought about it and they've weighed their options carefully and they've seen it's not time yet. Okay. It's quite surprising if you think about the amount of time we waste thinking,
Right.
planning, uh, while the doers, they think for sure, but they let the experience shape their thoughts. They let the experience shape the journey. It's not a life and death situation. That's why I say it should be an easy decision to make to do it. Um, don't be afraid of getting clients. Be very afraid of not trying to get clients, because the lawyers who've done it are not special. The lawyers who are doing it are not special. They're the same lawyers. They can do the same work you are doing currently. So I'd say don't be afraid. I'd totally recommend. I'd say the earlier the better. I wish I did it way earlier.
Right.
I don't regret doing it at the time I did it, but I wish I did it earlier. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Nuggets of wisdom. I guess it's true what they say. Learned friends.
Oh, really?
That is Adair Steven of Adair and Company Advocates right here on the Groundbreakers podcast, powered by Take 6 Africa Digital. Let's engage across all our social media platforms. Let's get to talking. What does it really take to start a business? Why do we have this fear a lot of times? And how can we break that? That is all we're about right here. I am Nelson Alima. Thank you so much for watching. Be blessed.